is Fight IQ presented by RotoWire. Here to talk UFC Uruguay, our main event, one that fans have been clamoring for years. It is the rematch of Valentina Shevchenko and Liz Carmouche. Co-main event, I think we can all agree, is the People's main event. That fight should have Vicente Luque taking on Platinum Mike Perry. That's a real main event. Really kind of funky card for DraftKings. Here to break it down for you guys. I'm your host, the Daily Fantasy Sniper. With me, as always, the analysts, the more important guys, Joe Sunsu and Chris Olson from RotoWire. Guys, how you doing?
Awesome, man. Nice to be back after a week off. I guess I wasn't going to be on anyway, but we had technical issues with the Google Hangouts having gone away, and I have to say I love this new stream a lot better. I think it's great.
Yeah, this is you can see everybody's face all at once. There's not any kind of crazy flipping. If there is flipping, Chris kind of has control. So if you guys don't like where the camera's pointed, that's on Chris. Much better video this week. You guys can't tell. You've been hearing me talk about it for weeks. I am pseudo moved, and then the movers are coming tomorrow. I'm in the house, but I'm literally sitting on a beanbag chair in my office with no other furniture.
Pseudo moved. I got it.
So tomorrow everything will happen. I'll have a better computer as well, so we should all be in much better shape. But because of my picture quality, you can tell the difference between my computer and yours too.
Nice.
All right. Chris, any thoughts on this card before I give the standard intro? I mean, are you looking forward to things like I got to say the third to last fight of this card is going to be a freaking disaster. Eduardo Garagori against Humberto Bandone is your lead into the co-main event. Is that got you pumped up?
Well, that does not, but I will say that there are cards on this. There are fights on this undercard, I should say, that are very sneakily going to be some good fights. I'm excited for Vargas de Silva. I'm excited to see the Freitas back against Chris Gutierrez. And then the main card is pretty solid, except for what Sean just mentioned.
Wait, did you say you were excited for Vargas de Silva?
Yeah, that's going to be a good fight, man.
That's going to fade that fight.
Two athletic guys. I don't know, but we'll talk about it, I guess.
Yeah,
but,
I don't know about fading that either, Joe.
Guys, if you can notice, I'm very uncomfortable getting my head into the screen, but don't worry because when what
are you trying to do?
I'm just trying to
go that way a little bit. It's way? Like watching a
move your
monkey
over.
Okay.
Like watching a monkey trying. You know what, a doorknob.
Well, when I hang on. When I
other way.
I can't get the hang of it.
It's better. I don't know why Chris can't get his head into it.
And now you look insane.
I know.
Your camera?
Okay. Either way, guys, when one of us talks, we're gonna focus in. So when you hear my analysis, it's just going to be my beautiful face that you see. So we won't have any more of these problems. But yes, as far as the card goes, I am excited for it. I think that it can be sneakily good, and I think the main card will produce. So yeah, I'm excited for it.
All right, before we get into the goodness that is this fight card, especially for GPPs, I will say I think it's a very interesting GPP card. Got to tell you the Fight IQ is brought to you by RotoWire. Go to rotowire.com/free 10-day free trial to all their premium content. No credit card required. You can watch this on YouTube live 8 o'clock on Fridays. Make sure you subscribe to the RotoWire YouTube channel. You can also listen to the recording of that live podcast on iTunes under RotoWire MMA. You can also follow all of us on Twitter. I'm at the DF Sniper. Joe is at Sunsu. Chris is at Real Chris Olson. I think that's enough of the pleasantries, guys. Let's get right into. I know where me and Joe already disagree some because we talked about it on Twitter. Polyana Viana 8,600 taking on Veronica Macedo at 7,600. Macedo, huge line value here, odds value. She is minus 135, priced at 7,600, while Polyana Viana is plus 125, priced at 8,600. Both fighters have underachieved in their UFC career. Viana stepping up, by the way, on short notice, up a weight class. Macedo has had some flashes, but she's been out-muscled previously. I think she's going to be the better striker. I like her to win a really close fight. If Viana bullies her, she'll win, but either way, to me, the only one that interests me on DraftKings is Macedo. She will be chalk, though. Joe, since we talked about it on Twitter, you can start us off here.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I disagree. I'm just saying that I would not buy all into the odds value. I mean, I know the odds value plays catch a lot of ownership, and I intend to be solidly under market on ownership here just because I see this as a pick'em fight. And not only is it a pick'em fight, it's a coin toss fight. I can't like come up with a winner. Both of these ladies are lower echelon in the weight class. Very attractive, I will say that. But other than that, I really can't, separate them too much. I mean, obviously the line is flipped. I think a lot of that is based on the short notice nature of the fight. But other than that, neither one is actually impressed a lot. So yeah, I'll have some shares for line value, but if you want to actually play game theory, you should have a share or two of Viana because she is a horrible value at her price right now. And I think that she's going to be very underowned. So I would say that there are better pivots even at Macedo's price point that I would go to above and beyond her because, look, even if she wins, she's likely not going to get 10x. I don't see a finish. So just be careful with this line value. It's not a fight that you need to go all in on. I'll give a lean to Macedo for the win, but it's not a highly confident pick. And I am just pleading that people, exhibit caution when they don't just blindly load Macedo into your lineups.
Yeah, I'm not saying to go crazy, but the issue is that I see people in chat already saying fade. Guys, all those other pivots that Joe's talking about, they're high volatility. And you have Macedo at minus 135. I can't recommend a fade because if none of those other guys come through, we're going to have an issue here where Macedo's going to end up on the optimal just based on her price. Now, there's one dog price right next to her I like a ton more. We'll talk about that later. Yeah, but I'm not saying go overweight on Macedo, but to the guys in chat thinking about a full fade, I would caution you against that. Chris.
Well, I wouldn't full fade Macedo, and there I am, full screen, so we don't have to deal with that nonsense anymore. I wouldn't go full fade on Macedo, but I have to say that it's really hard for me to pick Macedo even in this fight. The reason being is, I mean, they both have pretty similar skill sets where they like to stay on the outside on the feet and play like a long-range kicking game, Macedo being the more athletic of the two. But the thing about Macedo is literally everyone who has tried has taken her down multiple times. So it's really hard for me, and I feel like she's way too comfortable off her back. And I mean, it looks like she might have a decent bottom sweep game, but I'm not putting too much weight into that when I have another jiu-jitsu player in Viana here. I just think that eventually she gets this fight to the ground. There might be some sketchy moments in the beginning, or as long as it's on the feet just because of that speed and athleticism disadvantage. But at some point, I have to expect Viana gets this fight to the ground because Macedo has either A, shown no ability to stop it, or B, is comfortable there. Either one you don't want if you're Macedo. I think, as we know, that Macedo is the chalk, as you said, which is very weird. So if people are going to be off Viana here when Macedo has a very clear liability in a matchup where her opponent's strength is jiu-jitsu, then yeah, I'm all for it. So my pick is Viana.
All right, moving on. Alex de Silva, 9,200, taking on Rodrigo Vargas at 7,000. That line, hang on, that line can't be right. I have to refresh best fight odds, guys. Otherwise, there's been massive line movement. Is that right? No, 5 Dimes is wrong. 5 Dimes had Vargas listed as the favorite, which is just weird. But all the other sites have it about right. Minus 285-ish for Silva. Comeback on Vargas plus 237. Vargas, not good. Tough Mexican fighter. Alex de Silva looked good in his UFC debut until he got submitted in the second round by Yakovlev. Look, I think Silva's better here. Vargas, not that impressive, just tough. I think Silva hits hard enough. I think this is a sneaky fight to target in GPPs. The issue is the rest of the 9,000, everybody else in that $9,000 range is going to be more popular than Silva, and that's going to drag down his ownership. I like Silva in this one quite a bit, but I will have some shares of Vargas because he's just going to want to sit down and throw, I think, and he's really cheap. Chris, you start this one.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know why you don't think Vargas is good at all. I actually think he's. I mean, look, he's got a good hard kicking game. He not much of a boxer, I'll give you that much, but he's an active takedown artist, as is Silva, which is what makes this fight interesting. I think, I'm actually kind of leaning towards Vargas here, and the reason I say that is because I just feel like he's a little bit more composed on the feet. We saw a lot of times in the Silva fight where he would just sort of lunge at strikes in that Yakovlev fight, and the other thing is I really think that Vargas is going to out-scramble him. Now that's a little bit of deduction on my part. We don't have a ton of evidence of one versus the other. They're both willing to scramble. I just think Vargas is going to be stronger here. From what I've seen, I like his transitions on the ground a little bit better. I think he's a little bit smoother. I think this is going to be a tough competitive fight for as long as it lasts. But I don't know. This is just, and by the way, Vargas is the one with the experience here, if I'm not mistaken. So all of that, or relative experience anyway.
Not in the UFC, yeah.
Yeah. So all of that is really kind of leaning me towards Vargas. This might be like, I agree with Sean that the 9,000 range. I think that most people won't be targeting De Silva there. So if you do like him, I think that he's a good play as well. I really think both guys are pretty viable here. I think Vargas will be even less well known because there's less known about him, and it was even hard to find a ton of tape on him. But I kind of like what I've seen from Vargas, at least enough to pit him against another guy who's light on experience here. So yeah, I'm going to take Vargas.
Joe.
Yeah. So my issue with Vargas is he's taken 15 months off. His last win was notable against former UFC fighter Mike De La Torre, but that was 15 months ago. And he's 33 years old. I have to believe the only reason he got the call was because they needed a later notice replacement. With that said, I'm not overly impressed and or enamored with De Silva either. I think I might have actually had him. It was like a pick'em fight against the Great White North, or the Thunder of the North, Alexander Yakovlev, who himself was coming off of a very long layoff in that fight. And, De Silva did not exhibit great fight IQ in getting choked out. So to Chris's point, I will say that of all of the higher salaried fighters on DraftKings, De Silva is my least favorite. I won't say that I'm ready yet to endorse Vargas simply because of the layoff. Also, just of note, De Silva fights is part of Astra Fight Camp, which is not a bad Brazilian camp. Vargas is at some camp called Mexican Pride, which I don't know a lot about. So you've got a guy coming off of a 15-month layoff, had a couple of canceled fights, 33 years old, stepping up on shorter notice. I'm going to have to go with De Silva here, but again, he is my least favorite of the higher priced DK fighters.
Geraldo de Freitas, 8,300, taking on Chris Gutierrez at 7,900. Freitas, or however you say his name, I can't get this guy's name right. I pronounced it 8 different ways. Is minus 130. The comeback in Gutierrez is plus 120. And oddly enough, the guy whose name I can't say is one of my favorite plays in the card. Wasn't impressed by Gutierrez. Was impressed by, I'm going to call him GDF in his fight. Look, he's got wrestling potential, which we love on DraftKings. He looked clean on the feet. I think he's better than Gutierrez everywhere. I'm surprised this line. I mean, they're two relatively unknowns, so minus 130. I think there's some value in that line. I like GDF quite a bit in this fight in the mid-range. Joe.
Well, I mean, given Coelha, who De Freitas beat, given Coelha's recent win against Dom, how good does that win look? He also, in that win, put up 128 DK points. So I didn't put a ton of time into looking into this fight until, one, I saw the 128 DK points, and then realized who it was he beat in his last fight and how good Coelha looked coming back against the biggest favorite on the card a few slates back. So that looks like a pretty good win. I'm with you, Sean. I'm going to go with De Freitas here. He has got slate-breaking potential. Gutierrez is a decent fighter. Excuse me. Let's see. What fight team is he training with? Fighting out of Englewood, Colorado. Don't
Probably
know.
Team Elevation.
Yeah, if he's with Elevation. Look, I mean, getting choked out by Rony Barcelos is is nothing to really feel too bad about. He did win a unanimous decision against Ryan McDonald. I don't think this is a slam dunk for De Freitas. Although I do like his slate breaking capability and the fact that that win now looks a whole lot better against Coelha. So I'm going to go with De Freitas, but I would say, if you're playing a lot of lineups, sprinkle in a share or two of Gutierrez, but my play is definitely De Freitas here.
Chris.
The opportunity to pat myself on the back here. I was talking up De Freitas a lot in the wake of that Coelha fight on this very podcast. The thing I like most about him is that he's got a very solid boxing game in addition to his wrestling game, and of course the excellent jiu-jitsu game. I think he's very good defensively. I think that he's good at slipping shots. He's good at drawing his opponent out when he needs to. The thing about Chris Gutierrez, and I agree with Sean, is that he's okay. He's just sort of like a very defensive-minded kickboxer, and I don't think that's going to be enough against the guy in De Freitas who's going to be quicker than him, most likely stronger than him, a better boxer, a better wrestler, at all. So I really think De Freitas is better everywhere. I agree with Sean again, saying that the line kind of confused me, but I'm going to be heavy on De Freitas here.
That makes me nervous. Now I'm scared. Next up, Rogério Bontorin, 8,200, taking on Raulian Paiva at 8,000. Bontorin is the minus 110 favorite. Small dog and Paiva at plus 100. Both guys coming off of split decisions. Bontorin got a win over Bibliatov. Paiva lost to Kai Kara-France in Australia. Look, Paiva looked good in that fight. I'm more impressed with Bontorin, but from a DraftKings, it's a tough fight. This is one of the ones I'm going back and forth on. I lean towards Bontorin to get a win, but even though it's a mid-range fight, I don't think either one of these guys are good DraftKings scores. I don't know how excited I am to play either one of them. Chris?
Yeah, I agree. As I was delinquent in my production duties there for a second, but I agree with that sentiment. I think that I don't really see either one scoring all that well. I would say that I am on Bontorin here. I just think that, Paiva is he's a good pressure fighter, but it just seems like once he gets you pressured, his technique sort of breaks down. We saw that a lot in his debut against Kai Kara-France, where he would chase him with strikes or really just sort of run into the clinch. And I just feel like those technique breakdowns are going to hurt him against Bontorin, who really is not a fantastic boxer, but a solid one, a guy who doesn't really overextend too much. On the ground, this is going to be really interesting. They're both really scrambly guys, so we could be in for a nice treat there. It's sort of tough to say how this fight's going to go once it hits the ground. I think Bontorin has it on the feet, as I said. If I had to go one way, I'm going to pick Bontorin, but this is not one of my high priorities on this card.
Joe?
I like Paiva here. I think he offers a little bit of line value. Both of these fighters are Dana White Contender Series alums, although I would say that Bontorin had the better win. He had a submission win versus a split decision win. Both of these guys, their first fight in the UFC were split decisions as underdogs. Split decision win over Magomed Bilatov for Bonatin. That was impressive. But I have to say, the split decision loss against Kai Kara-France was actually more impressive to me. I think he could have actually won that fight. He looked good. I like some of the things I saw. I can't recall whether it was short notice or not. But I mean, here's a guy. He actually flew across the world here to take this fight, and this is a little bit closer to home. There is a small amount of line value on this card, so I will lean towards Paiva. I think he sneakily could put up a decent score. I don't have a high level of confidence, but I'm going to go with Paiva here.
All right, Tecia Torres 8,700 taking on Marina Rodriguez at 7,500. Tecia Torres, the favorite, minus 150. Comeback on Rodriguez is plus 140. Torres, 3 straight losses against killers. Rodriguez, undefeated, not great competition. She's a kickboxer. Torres is a boxer. I just think Ticia's better. The issue, though, again, is DraftKings scoring. Tecia typically just doesn't score a lot of points, even in her wins. She has the path for grappling, but I don't think she's going to use it. She rarely does. So, yeah, I like Tecia Torres to win, but I don't think this is a good DraftKings fight. Joe?
Yeah, so I posted my ticket on Twitter. This is the single largest wager I've made on a straight-up fight this year, and it's on Tecia Torres. I see levels to this game. Combine that with the way that Torres has looked at sparring. I've been following her up on Instagram. Shout out to, and I can't remember his name, but he posted up some of her opponents. She's been training with world-class Muay Thai fighters and sparring. I do think she will use her wrestling here. She can get takedowns. She did get a few against Andrade. She attempted 10 takedowns against Joanna Champion, but Joanna Champion has got much better takedown defense than Rodriguez. Again, I get the height and reach differential. I honestly think Torres could win this by getting inside with her more technical striking. I also think she will, I'm going to say, get at least 2 takedowns against Rodriguez. I'm not saying it's going to be pretty. I don't necessarily see this as a good DraftKings play. I'd probably go out and say it's probably not. However, the initial line was minus 139. That line is now up to 177. So the line is kind of moving in my direction. I don't know whether I would recommend a wager at minus 177, but I do like her to get the win. Let's go Tecia Torres, unanimous decision with at least 2 takedowns.
Speaking of social media, see who's back in Tecia Torres' room?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that. I was wondering, I had heard they'd broken up. I saw that. So
I wonder how true it was. Anyway,
I wonder if that means she's going to fight with a renewed vigor. So let's see.
But by the way, if you're not familiar, that's the answer to that question is Raquel Pennington.
Yes,
rumors were they broke up, and Pennington won her last fight. And they're posting pictures in Torres's room, cutting weight or after weight cut. Chris, how do you have the fight?
Yeah, I almost hope my pick doesn't come in if it's going to be Joe's largest wager. But
go against me.
I am. I'm picking. Well, I have a heart, Joe. I don't like to see my podcast mates.
You have a heart.
Lose a lot of money, but I am going with Rodriguez here.
Wow.
Sean said it first, and I think there's an adage in this game that doesn't let us down too often, and it's kickbox the boxer. I think that the more tools on the feet really help there, including her height and reach advantage, which Joe mentioned. One thing I really liked about Rodriguez's fight with Aguilar, and I'm not comparing the two in terms of wrestling, but one thing I really did like there was Marina's ability to wrench up Aguilar in the clinch and just go to work with knees and elbows and things as the taller fighter. I like that a lot. I feel like she could do a similar thing here. And I'm just not sure. Joe, you said it. You said that she can win if she gets in, but she has to get in first. I like Rodriguez to keep her on the end. I think that if they do clinch up, she will be able to use her Muay Thai skills in the clinch, as I said. And I just like Rodriguez a lot here, especially as a dog play. So I'm going with who I think is the better striker. I think she's going to fade the wrestler.
Better striker?
Huh?
Maybe higher volume, but not better.
Well, I would say better, sure.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I disagree with that too, but we'll find out. To me, Rodriguez is a kicker. Yeah. Not her boxing. I mean, she's kickboxer, throws mostly kicks.
She's higher volume, but she's nowhere near as technical as Torres.
But again, if it comes down to volume, I don't know. I don't see it, but I do think Rodriguez is going to get some love in cash games because of her price, and we're expected to see 3 rounds. That being said, let's move on to a fight that should not see 3 rounds. Ciryl Gane at 9,400 taking on, God, I don't even know this guy's first name, Raphael Pessoa at 6,800. Gane minus 430, Pessoa plus 380, both making their UFC debut. Gane, the big favorite, is only 3-0, but he looks like a legit fighter. Pessoa looks like your neighborhood friendly trash man. He has beaten up a bunch of nobodies in Brazil, but he is 5-0. He has power. He manages to look bad in the fights. He gets knockouts in. It's kind of weird. He just, marches forward, chin up. Gane looks like a legit prospect. I think knocks him out. Love this fight for GPPs. Pick here, obviously, if you haven't picked up on it from me, is Gane. Chris, you going to go hot take on this one too and take Pessoa?
No hot take on this one, but I would say that I want to let you guys know how much I love you. I couldn't find any Pessoa fight, so I actually paid for his last LFA fight. Shelled out those $3. I will be invoicing RotoWire for that promptly. But what I saw was not great. I mean, basically what he tries to do is just sort of throw hard kicks and then back up and catch you coming in with a punch or something. But in this instance, Gane is going to be way more athletic. He's going to be just the way better volume striker. He's just going to be he's a good pressure fighter. He's a good defensively. I don't expect him to get caught with one of Pessoa's slow hooks coming in. Obviously, it's a big heavyweight fight, so anything can happen as we see. But I really just don't see it. Aside from a lightning strike shot that he hits him on the chin with, which of course could happen, I think Gane has this pillar to post. I'm going to be pretty heavy and confident on him here.
Joe?
Yeah, Francis Ngannou's former training partner at the camp in Paris that they both trained at. Guy's only 3-0, kind of highly touted. Obviously, always dangerous when you get, this is a 29-year-old heavyweight, which we all consider young in the heavyweight arena. This is a fight not without risk, although his opponents have not been the typical cans that you see. But the guy has only had 3 fights, so keep that in mind. Best inside the distance prop on the card, will be very highly targeted and highly owned. But just keep all of that in consideration, when you lock this guy in. I do like him. I am going to pick him to win. I think this is pretty much a setup fight, for him to get the L and to get the W, and move on. And I wouldn't be surprised if he moved to Vegas and started training with Ngannou. In any case, I will pick Gane. I will pick him to win by finish.
Alexey Kunchenko, 8,800, taking on Gilbert Burns, 7,400. Line on this fight, Kunchenko, -125. Line keeps closing. Burns, +115. Some odds value there for Burns. Kunchenko is 20-0. He's undefeated. Not great UFC competition yet. Definitely his toughest fight. Does look good. Looks to have good takedown defense. Low output striker, so he's not a good DraftKings play pretty much ever. Burns, first fight at 170 on short notice. Man, world-class BJJ player. His hands are coming along. +115. Gilbert Burns is the guy I was talking about earlier. If there's an underdog who's going to break the slate, I think it's most likely going to be Gilbert Burns, one of my favorite underdog plays on the card, just because I'm not scared of Kunchenko over 3 rounds. Burns has the big right hand. He's got this fight hits the ground. I think it's done quick. I like Gilbert Burns a lot in this fight. Joe?
Yeah, I wouldn't say a lot. I mean, he's moving up to welterweight. He's taking the fight short notice. Line value moving in his favor is going to be very highly owned. I don't think it's a secret. I would lead a little caution. Look, he's fighting a guy who's never lost. And he's taking the fight on short notice, up a weight class. I think he's the better DraftKings play, but I'm not going to pick him to win here.
All right, Chris.
All right. Well, I do think that those are both points that should be mentioned, and they're good points. The fact that he's moving up and the fact that it's short notice, but I like Gilbert Burns a lot here. Sean mentioned that Kunchenko is.
Stop agreeing with my strong plays.
I know.
Stop it.
I'm dooming us both, but I can't help it. I just think that Burns is not only is Kunchenko a not active enough striker, but you can back him up pretty easily if you take the initiative. He let Thiago Alves work for big portions of that fight. I actually thought Alves won that fight. Neither here nor there, but I think that Gilbert Burns. Look, we've seen him get a little wild on his feet and get hit with a counter shot, and I think that is the Kunchenko win path here. If Burns gets a little wild on his feet and he cracks Gilbert Burns, other than that, I just don't see where Kunchenko is going to have an advantage. I think that, look, Kunchenko is obviously a strong guy, good grappler, but we haven't seen anybody yet that Gilbert Burns can't take down. So it will be a first if Kunchenko won't be able to get him there. Once he gets him there, I think he has his way with him as he does everybody else. But the one thing I would maybe ask for clarification on, Sean, you think it would be, I like him too, don't get me wrong, you would think it would be a slate breaker, though? I think he's going to be pretty popular as a $7,200.
Slate breaker is in no Burns, no money. When you get somebody in the mid $7,000s.
You mean he's going to be on the optimal? You think he's going to be on the optimal?
Fair enough. Yeah.
And he's going to be somebody who's not even close.
Right. Okay, so in that case, I agree. I like him a whole lot. I expect people will, so it might be a little bit of a trap. I would say, Kunchenko for the scarcity play because I like doing that, but even that, it's hard to have a ton of it because, like I said, unless he catches him with that counter, he's just not going to score. So my play is Gilbert Burns. I'm sure we'll be in the majority here, but I love the guy's fighting style, have for a long time, so that's the play.
All right, Enrique Barzola, 8,900, taking on Bobby Moffett at 7,300. Line value here is on Moffett. Barzola, priced almost at 9,000. He's minus 120. Moffett is plus 110. This is a case where I don't agree with the odds value. So what Joe said earlier about Macedo, I'm going to say here against Bobby Moffett. To me, Moffitt's only path to victory in this fight is catching a submission. He could do it, but he's going to be really popular now. I think Barzola will be just fine on the feet against Moffett. I know he struggled against Aguilar. Barzola, great wrestler, has wrestling advantage in this fight. Moffett's a submission grappler. You can usually get those guys to the ground as long as Barzola stays safe. I think he wins this fight, and he's the sneakiest GPP play because no one's going to own him at minus 120. So what Joe is saying about Macedo and Viana, I'm saying that about Barzola and Moffett. I am picking Enrique Barzola to win this fight. Chris, you start this one.
Yeah, my only problem with Barzola is that Aguilar fight kind of scared me because it showed me that if Barzola can't get you to the ground, he basically doesn't have another path to win. He looked sort of like a deer in headlights for most of that fight. He turned it on a little bit in the third round, but overall, I think it's a concern because I think Bobby Moffett is the better, more solid boxer. Now, I think that it could be the case that Barzola could get him to the ground. We saw Ray Borg get him to the ground. I think Ray Borg might be a different quality of wrestler, but fair enough. I just think Moffett is live here because, as I said, I don't think Barzola is a sure play if he doesn't get the takedowns. But having said that, you need to have shares of Barzola, of course, because we've seen in his wins he puts up a lot of points because all he does is rinse and repeat takedowns. So once these two get on the ground, I think it'll be interesting because, as Sean said, even Sean would say that Moffett needs a sub. I think he'll be able to find one if they're on the ground potentially. So that makes this interesting to me. I'm gonna pick Moffett here just because of they're both wrestlers, so that could negate some of the takedowns. And I don't trust Barzola on the feet if it stays there. So my pick is a slight edge on Moffett, but definitely have your shares of Barzola.
Joe?
Yeah, major line value on Moffett, which I do completely agree with. Barzola opened the week minus 200. He's now minus 137. On DraftKings Sportsbook, I think you said he was minus 120. I love the camp change for Moffett. He went from MMA Lab to Fight Ready, where his coach moved to. He, in some interviews, is saying this is the best camp that he's had. Looks really good. I don't know that his striking is better than Barzola's, but I do agree that he will have his opportunities for submissions if Barzola looks to take him down. So that's an interesting dilemma. You've got a rinse and repeat takedown guy who is not very good at top control and can easily give up position. Is ATT going to advise him, as they have in every fight, to take down a submission specialist in Bobby Moffett, or are they going to tell him to use his striking, which it seems Barzola has fallen in love with based on his last disastrous fight against Aguilar? So I'm really interested to see how this plays out. I think there's incredible line value on Moffett. I love his price on DK. I will have a lot of him. Sean's point is a good one for line value players. It could cause Barzola to be underowned. So for game theory, sure, have a few shares of Barzola if you're looking to max. But I'm gonna actually pick Moffett for the upset.
Either me or Joe is going to have a really good week, and one of us is not going to have a good week. Next up, Vulcan O's. No, we got to talk about the hype train first. Rodolfo Vieira, 9,100, taking on Oscar Pajota at 7,100. Rodolfo Vieira making his UFC debut with minus 215. Pajota plus 195. It is a hype train, and this one I am on because Vieira is a BJJ player, world-class guy, coming along in MMA. Pajota, not great, has some power in his hands, knocked out Tim Williams last time out, doesn't do a ton, actually, a few fights ago. Last time out, he got submitted by Gerald Mearshart. He gets submitted by GM3. You're going to get submitted by Vieira. The second this fight hits the ground, it's a wrap. Pajota's got to keep it standing. I just don't think he can do it. Love Vieira in all formats. I do think he's going to be pretty popular. But I will have a couple shares of Pajota because similar to Barzola in his fight against Aguilar, if Vieira can't get this one down, Pajota's got more power in his hands, although Vieira is a very large man. I'm going to have a bunch of Vieira, and the lineups that don't, a fair amount of those will have Pajota. I just think it's a great GPP fight. Joe, you start this one off.
Yeah, Brett Appley is very high on Vieira. Apparently one of the finest gi can't get that out. Gi Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners in the world for a number of years. Excuse me. Making his UFC debut with a 5-0 MMA record. Brett is extremely high on this guy, Brett Appley. I am kind of picking up on his enthusiasm. The risks that Sean mentioned are there. He could gas out if he doesn't find what he needs to find. The problem is Pajota can also gas out. He's gassed out against GM3, and got submitted. So this is an interesting fight because Pajota is more rounded and has got skills. It's just the one skill that Vieira has. It's like when Kron Gracie fought Bruce Leroy. It's so much more dominant than what the other guy offers that he should be able to use it and make it work if the fight gets anywhere near the ground. So I'm going to pick Vieira. I think he's a solid GPP play. I think I would pay up a little for Shevchenko for cash, but I certainly like him as a GPP play. I'm going to obviously pick him to win by finish, by submission.
Chris?
Yeah, I actually, it's strange because I do think that we've seen fights with Vieira where if you can keep him on the end of your punches, and when that happens, like he's been hurt in a couple of his fights, but the problem is when he gets hurt, that's his opportunity to connect with you, and when he connects with you, he takes you down. So I do think that Pajota, as you said, look, he's got a chance if he keeps it standing. The problem is if Gerald Mearshart could take you down that many times, Vieira probably can too. Gerald Mearshart is nobody's idea of a great wrestler as much as I like the guy. So I do think that Pajota has a chance here. I think he's live. But I have to think that at some point this fight is going to hit the ground. And when that happens, Vieira is just going to win. I am going to be pretty heavy on Vieira here, although I know most people will be too. I just don't trust Pajota to keep this standing or to knock him out before the inevitable takedown happens. But as I said, have shares of both because it's the definition of a binary fight. So be careful.
All right, moving on. We have Volkan Ozdemir, 8,500, taking Ilir Latifi at 7,700. Ozdemir, the favorite, minus 155. Latifi, plus 145. Ozdemir looked better than he has in a long time, in my opinion, against Dominic Reyes last time out in a loss. I was never a believer in even when he was having those fluky knockouts. That was a good performance from him. Latifi, physical specimen at 205. Getting old, though. This is the fight I've been bouncing back and forth between. I think right now I'm leaning towards Ozdemir as the pick, but Latifi for the price savings is a better DK play. But this is one I've been struggling with, so let's go to these guys for it. Chris?
Yeah, I think that I agree with you 100%, which I know it's an annoying habit that I need to stop doing it, but you're leaving me no choice here. But I do agree with you that Ozdemir looked much better his last time out. He was slipping shots and countering much better. I also loved that he was really incorporating wrestling. We saw him do that a little bit in the fight before that against Anthony Smith. But I think it looks like that's something that he's going to continue. And I really like that he would really opt for wrist control during his takedowns. It didn't seem like a bullying takedown. It seemed like a technical takedown where he knew what he was doing. So I like that a lot. I like the constant pressure that he kept on Dominic Reyes. That's part of his fighting style, but I think it was even amped up a little bit more in that fight. And Ilir Latifi he's a guy who's gonna try to wing hooks at you, and if one catches, he's gonna get you, or he'll try to wrap your neck standing, and that's it. So can he catch Ozdemir and knock him out? Of course he can. But I just think that Ozdemir has more tools, mix in the wrestling, and look, he gassed out pretty hard in that fight against Corey Anderson. If Ozdemir can mix in some of that wrestling and clinching and gas him out again, I also like that aspect of it. So I'm going to pick Ozdemir here. I think he could be a nice little sneaky play. He's coming off the 3 losses in a row. People are going to remember Latifi winning more recently and also in dominant fashion. He had that the guillotine against who was it? OSP, and he got a lot of points in that fight. So I think of the two, Latifi's going to be more popular. So I am kind of heavy on the Ozdemir train here, which is kind of weird to say, especially how he's been performing lately.
Joe, before you do the breakdown for this fight, I need to ask you the question from One Way here in chat, who asks, who has better hair, Ilir or Vulcan?
Ooh, Vulcan or who?
Or Ilir.
Ilir Latifi.
They're both bald, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, but who's got? I'll give the lean to Latifi. But I don't know how sneaky a play that Vulcan's going to be here. It was a technical loss in his last fight against Reyes. I think Reyes was even surprised he got the decision in that fight. Here's my other issue with Latifi. Latifi is a power wrestler. I'd have to believe, and I am not an expert, but I'd have to believe the worst injury for a power wrestler is to your back. And he is coming off of a series of back injuries. And let's tell the truth here. I mean, if there is a fighter that's more diminished than OSP, I mean, put your hand up. OSP is kind of, now he's like at that low end gatekeeper role. I like Vulcan here. I think he won his last fight against Reyes. I think he was winning against Smith until he gassed out. Hopefully he's worked on his cardio. I thought I heard he had some visa issues in coming to the U.S., which is meant he was doing his camp overseas and not in the U.S. Someone maybe can confirm that. But I'm going to go with Vulcan here.
All right, moving on. We have the fight I teased in the open. Eduardo Garagori, 8,400, taking on Humberto Bandenay at 7,800. The newcomer Garagori is actually, he's still the favorite, minus 115. Line is closed a bit. Bandenay plus 105. Really, both guys are not very good. Bandenay is 1-2 in the UFC, coming off the tough Latin America. Garagori is only on this card because he's from Uruguay. He's unbeaten.
He's not. He's Brazilian. Yeah, he's actually fought in Uruguay, but he's not Uruguayan.
All right. He's still the local fighter. If there wasn't, that's why he's on this card. So yeah, it's one of those. I think I have a little more faith in Bandenay, but all the odds tell you Garagori. Guys, I love this fight for GPPs. Neither one is very good. I think they're going to a low-level fight. Someone's going to sleep early is my inclination in this one. Give me Bandenay as the pick just because I know more about him. It's hard to find tape on Garagori. Joe.
Yeah. So the only reason that Garagori is on this card is because he has a local connection. Born in Brazil, he's had some fights on the Uruguayan regional scene. his opponents have been, let me put it kindly and say, interesting. If you look at his last fight against a guy named Stevens Diago, Diago's got an 0-1 record, and his one loss was to Grigori, which I found kind of interesting. I am going to go with Bandele here. And his other opponent, August Marquez, also 0-1. So that's a real killer scene, that Uruguayan regional scene. He's coming off of 2 wins against 0-1 guys, who he was their only opponent. I'm going to go with Bandele here, and here's what I recommend people do: is some of that line value ownership on Mercado, move it over to Bandele, because I think he's got a much higher ceiling. Now, you can argue his floor is lower, although I would maybe even argue against that based on the quality of opponents. But I'd say move some of that line value ownership away from Mercado and move it on to Bandele. I'm not saying Bandele is the greatest thing since sliced bread here. I am saying he's a better fighter. He's fought against better competition in the UFC. I expect him to get the finish here.
I have to say, Joe, Chad's blown up. I love your pronunciations. Just so everybody's clear, it's Veronica Macedo and Humberto Bandenay.
Bandenay, Macedo.
Mercado and Bandele. Is he Vanderlei Silva?
I mispronounced him on purpose.
I got you. I find it entertaining.
Google Norm Crosby when you get a chance. I mispronounce a lot of these guys' names on purpose.
Oh, I know you do it on purpose. I particularly like those two.
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah, that's all right. There I am. I've posted a handy translator guide in the chat, so everybody's cool. But no, I actually am going to pick the debutante here. Joe, your point about lack of experience is taken, but look, I've never picked Bandenay in a fight before. I'm not going to start now. Picked against him rather in the Austin Arnett fight. That turned out well. He's just he's a kick-heavy fighter who throws one strike at a time. He's very easy to be backed up. And the opponent here is very aggressive, if nothing else. Aggressive and powerful and good on the ground. So that's enough for me, really. I mean, besides the knee against Martin Bravo that knocked him out, what has he really shown you? So if you want to talk experience, I understand, but it's not like Bandenay has shown you a ton either.
Well, at least he trains out of a good camp. I mean, he trains out of Team Oyama. I have to believe that he's getting better. When was the last, anybody who bets on a guy making their UFC debut off of 2 0-1 fighters? That is just a recipe for disaster. I mean, Team Oyama, you've got this guy. It's a good camp in the US. At least he's getting some decent training. I mean, I'm not sure that fighting on the Uruguayan regional scene is any better than sparring at Team Oyama.
It might not be, but I mean, my only point is, and look, your point's taken that, everybody, but I think everybody's going to feel the same way. And that's why I don't think he's going to be owned. I know that he's training with better guys. I know that he has at least had octagon experience. But look, some of these dark horses, I mean, you talk about slate breakers in the other direction. This would certainly be one, I think. This is a guy who knows nobody's going to be on, who's a good, aggressive, powerful fighter. And Bandenay just hasn't impressed me. So
I love both sides of this fight. I will say GPP, I like both sides.
Yeah, I mean that's fair enough too. Look, as I said, Bandenay is a hard single shot guy if he lands. And somebody brought up a good point in chat. That's Marco said, has he ever been hit? And no, I've never seen him rocked. I've never seen him hit clean. So that's a good point. A totally fair point. We need to see how he reacts to being hit. So there are total warts on this pick, on this play. I'll be the first to admit it.
And Grigori is the favorite, which is insane.
Yes, and well, that will just be even more to get the scarcity that I desire. I think I'm going to get it. And look, I think he has a good opportunity to knock him out or get him on the ground and sub him. So yeah, I'm going to stay with my pick of Garagori here.
All right, guys, co-main event or people's main event time. Vicente Luque 9,000, Mike Perry 7,200, Luque minus 215, Perry plus 195. Another good GPP fight. Look, Luque, I get he was in a war last time against Brian Barberena. The guy hits hard. I think Barberena That's the only time he's been finished by strikes. Mike Perry, while he's aggressive and more powerful, I don't think he's as tough. But again, more power. Luque should be able to grapple him if he wants. I don't know if he goes that route, if it turns into a brawl. Anything can happen with Perry's power, but the point is here, Luque's just a better fighter, and I think the fight against Barberena has people a little more worried than they should be. But Perry live with his power for sure. Chris, start us off.
Yeah, I went back and I looked at that fight against Brazilian Cowboy Oliveira because I thought, wow, that's got to be the best win of his career. Let me go back and see how he looked in that fight. And basically what I got out of it was he did okay in the clinch, but essentially all this was he toughed it out until Oliveira tired and then went after him. I mean, he was getting pieced up with strikes for large portions of that fight. The thing about Mike Perry that I dislike now, especially now that he's at Jackson Wink, is Jackson Wink seems to have this nasty little habit of breeding the aggression out of their fighters. I mean, since he's gone there, like he just, I guess Joe Rogan would call it technical, but all it really means is you stand and wait for your opponent to do things. And I feel like that's the trap that Mike Perry's fallen into here. I feel like Luque is a much more technical striker. Like imagine if Cowboy Oliveira was a technical striker and didn't just try to leap into the pocket with every strike he threw. That's Vicente Luque. He's a much more technical boxer. He's a much better grappler. I think he can use the wrestling game too if he wants. And look, I was pretty confident that Oliveira was going to beat Mike Perry. I won't lie at all. But it was a gas tank issue. Credit to Mike Perry for being tough enough to tough it out, as it were. I don't think toughness is going to be enough here. I don't think Mike Perry has anywhere near a deep enough skill set to beat a guy like Vicente Luque. So, yeah, I'm going to eat the chalk here, and I'm going hard on Vicente Luque.
Joe.
Yeah, by the way, Chris, I don't believe that Perry did this camp at Jackson Wink.
Oh, he didn't? Okay, fair enough.
So. I think he did it. I don't think he did his camp at Jackson Wink. I'm with you on Luque. I mean, one point I want to make, and for those of you that also watch Alpha, I apologize for making this point. Perry fights nothing like Brian Barberena, right? So if you like Perry because he's going to get a one-shot knockout, not because he's going to wear Luque down with punches. That's not Perry's game. He's not a super high velocity puncher or thrower. He is more that one-punch knockout guy. The other thing is I would not use Perry in cash. If you're going to play Perry, he's a GPP play, high ceiling, low floor. I would certainly have a couple shares of him in mass entry, but like Chris, I am going to be fairly significantly exposed to Luque.
All right, main event time. Valentina Shevchenko, 9,600, taking on Liz Carmouche at 6,600. Who wants to hear the stupid odds? It is five dimes actually came down a little bit. 5 dimes is only minus 875. So you can get anywhere from minus 875 to minus 1,300 on Valentina Shevchenko. Liz Carmouche, somewhere in that plus 685 range. Look, this comes down to Carmouche did win the first fight. I'll steal Joe's thunder and say she was losing that fight until she caught Shevchenko with an up kick, cut her eyelid, doctor stoppage, and that is a loss on Shevchenko's record. Carmouche needs to grapple in this fight. Shevchenko's better everywhere. It's a matter of how many points does she score. Outside of the Priscilla Cachoeira fight, Shevchenko doesn't typically score great, and she's going to need 110 points to be in the optimal GPP lineup. Love her in cash games. I'm going to be underweight in GPPs because I don't know if I want to spend all that money when all these other 9,000 price fighters have just as high of a ceiling. So Shevchenko clearly the pick to win, but I'm going to tone down my exposure on DraftKings. I will roll out Shevchenko in cash, though. Joe, start us off main event.
Yeah. Actually, Sean, slight correction. Shevchenko has broken 100 in her last 3 fights.
She's broken 100. Sorry, I should have clarified.
Yeah,
she's at that 110 mark. She needs 110 in this fight.
Catch a beating. She got 140, 109 against Joanna Champion, and 103 against Jessica I. And in that fight against Jessica I, she only got 8 significant strikes. What I like about Shevchenko here, and let's to be note, Carmouche has never been knocked out. She was submitted, but that was, I believe, 6.5 years ago. Sean told the story behind the loss. Shevchenko got cut fairly badly and it was stopped. But here's what I like about Shevchenko's last 3 fights, and why I think as much as a 12-1 fighter can be a sneaky GPP play, against Priscilla Cachobeating, 95 significant strikes, 2 takedowns, 4 advances. Joanna Champion.
You can't use that fight, though.
Fight should have been. I'm just using that as a lead.
Ugh.
Joanna Champion, who has got very good takedown defense, 5 takedowns, 3 advances, 89 significant strikes. Jessica I, okay, as long as that fight lasted, 8 significant strikes, 1 knockdown, 2 takedowns, 3 advances. I love that Shevchenko has been working her wrestling into her game. No takedowns against Nunes in a fight which I think she could have won. 2 takedowns against Pena, 3 against Home. I definitely like the fact that she works her wrestling in. I don't think she's going to be afraid of Carmouche. Carmouche is obviously physically strong, but this is a 5-round fight. If this was a 3-round fight, I would definitely say run and hide for GPPs. I do think she is the safest cash play on the card, but I will also say I'm not playing any cash or very little cash. To me, this is a GPP card with a fair amount of variance, so I'm not going to be playing much, if at all, any cash. But I really like Shevchenko a lot here. It would really surprise me if Carmouche was even competitive in this fight. I mean, maybe for a round or so. But if this goes 5, I expect a pretty dominant win by Shevchenko.
I'll just say that 110 is not 12x, and that's not a guarantee to be in the optimal lineup in this GPP card. That's my only point with why that's my intent of going under-owned on Shevchenko.
I hear you.
Chris, what do you got?
Yeah, just a quick word on the fight itself. Is that Carmouche basically gets by with her strength as a wrestler, and look, we haven't really found anybody that Valentina hasn't been at least able to compete with in the strength department yet, including Holly Holm. So I don't expect that to be an advantage for Carmouche. That would be the only one that she could have, and I don't think she has it. So long story short, I think that Valentina is going to walk through her pretty handily. Now, we know that Carmouche is tough. I'm not really expecting a finish. If she gets a bunch of takedowns, maybe that's something. But I don't know. I don't know if she necessarily gets those takedowns either. I think those could end up being maybe stall outs in the clinch or something to that effect. So I'm with I'm going to grit my teeth. I'm with Sean again. I think that this could be a depressed scoring fight, but I do think that Valentina takes it. I just don't think that Carmouche has sort of a good meat and potatoes game against certain opponents. I just don't think it plays here. So big on Shevchenko, cash games, whatever, but probably doesn't make that 10 to 12, whatever that you're looking for.
All right, hot takes for UFC Uruguay. I'm going to read a couple viewer ones while we wait for these guys to get one queued up. One way says Luque versus Perry ends in a DQ by groin strike.
I love that.
Will Tuska, who, if I said your name wrong, I'm really sorry. Pajota KOs Vieira as he's coming in. Viable.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the 2 best ones I see there. So thanks to those guys for sending those out. You guys got a hot take queued up for UFC Uruguay?
Yeah, as long as here I am. I'm going to say that Vargas ends up on the optimal lineup.
Holy crap. All right, that would be really bad for me. Well, not terrible, but still. I don't like that. But okay, it's a pretty hot take, Joe.
What? I'm sorry. What was Chris's hot take again?
Rodrigo Vargas on the
optimal.
Wow. I'm going to say that Tecia Torres gets her first finish since Crocs were cool.
Yeah.
Actually, not that long. 7-7, 2017. Sevens are wild against Lima, where she got a sub. I'm saying that Tecia Torres is back. She's got her partner back. She's been training against world-class Muay Thai practitioners. She gets her wrestling going. Tecia Torres by submission or inside the distance. I think both those numbers are going to look pretty good. It is a risk play. I do have a sizable wager on Torres to win, so my perspective may be slightly skewed. But I do like. I'm going to take Tecia to get the finish here.
So Joe usually gives out the bets. I'm going to this time, although the line isn't available anymore that I bet it at. But I have, and it's right opposite of Chris, which I love. I have Silva wins by TKO KO. I bet half a unit on it at plus 315. You can get it at plus 260 now. I just think he's going to wear down Vargas and get a finish. He's just a better fighter. So I like him inside the distance, specifically a knockout in that one. That'll be my hot take.
Wow.
That's what we got for UFC Uruguay. Make sure you subscribe to the RotoWire YouTube channel, RotoWire MMA on iTunes. Go to rotowire.com/free 10-day free trial to all their premium content. No credit card required, as Chris is playing with his different options here.
You know what? I like this so much better because nothing chops off my head. I think we're gonna do this from now on, if that's okay.
Yeah, but why are you the biggest one here?
Well, you know, the stream obviously is very intelligent. It's a good AI.
Clearly.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Good luck in your contest. See you next week for
Hey,
UFC.
wait, just FYI, next week is 241. Big card, obviously. Give Invicta some support. The card is on right now. There's a fighter fighting on Invicta right now whose style is listed as Zombie Zitsu. So I'm very curious to see what Zombie Zitsu is all about. Invicta's on Fight Pass. Give it a support. Invicta is typically the only other promotion where I actively watch fights. But I wish everybody good luck, and let's make some bank. The main contest is already out for UFC 241. $300,000 prize pool, $25 entry. It is very skewed. $100,000 to first, which is 33% of the pool. So there is something to look forward to for next week. So enter those qualifiers, get some tickets, and good luck.
All right, guys. Good luck on your contest. See you next week.
Later.
Yeah, I was just trying out of the corner of my eye.